What's up, Illinois? I am on the road again. And before we get started, we've got a lot of familiar faces and voices here today. By the way, if you're listening right now and you'd like to watch the video version, just go to chillinois.net/video. Folks, I recently announced the end of the Chillinois podcast, and the tagline was not supposed to, the focus was not supposed to be the end of the Chillinois podcast. It was supposed to be what's next. And a lot of people instead focused on that. On October 6th at 7 p.m., we will be announcing what's next. So tune in and check it out. Folks, again, we're joined by familiar faces and voices. Philip, why don't you go ahead and say hi again to our audience, and then we'll bring our guests on. Oh, you're muted, but it's all good. It's all good.
Hey, I'm Philip.
There he is. And Chris, Rachel, say hi to the audience.
Hey everybody, good to be back.
Hey everyone. Yeah, it's great to be back on the show. This is Rachel with the IHGA.
And Rachel, go ahead and plug your website and maybe tell us some upcoming events that you have going on. I know you have something this weekend, so.
Yeah, thanks, Cole. So you can check us out at illinoishga.com. We're on all the social media platforms too, so you can follow us there. We do have an event coming up this weekend. It's super exciting. It's our 5-year anniversary, and we are celebrating with our second disc golf tournament in Princeton at the Chapel Hill Disc Golf Course. We're starting things at 9, tee off at 10, and we're open till 4. And at that time, a brand new restaurant is opening. It's like their second weekend or third weekend open in the same location. So we can check that out afterward too. But great local hemp prizes. Hemp hoodie from Don Salvador, Chicago artist, who's now into screen printing. So there's some new stuff that's there. That's really cool. All kinds of art from local artists, local food prizes, all kinds of goodies. So it's $30 a person. Join us. We'll be looking forward to seeing some familiar faces there.
And it's a great time, folks. We went, I can't remember how long ago, the time flies and the weed it smokes. So, jokes aside, we've got a lot of fun things to talk about today. And I just wanted to set up the conversation this way, because this is actually what inspired me to talk to reach out to both of you. And Chris, it's funny you mentioned this story. I don't know if I told you this is why I reached out to all of you. It's a Box Brown comic. And I'm going to read it for our listeners that might not be watching right now. The first strip is: the concept of diversion of illegal drugs into the illicit market is a well-known practice. A legal cannabis company in Missouri has been accused of the opposite, inversion. Delta Extractions and their partners were allegedly selling hemp-derived synthetic THC oil imported from another state as legal Missouri natural cannabis-made oil. Hemp-made THC is created using a chemical process to convert CBD oil into THC oil. Doing this process is legal. It's legal to ship across the country, and Missouri medical cannabis allows importing ingredients. So long story short, folks, check out the comics by Box Brown. That third strip, that third box, I'm not sure with my comic vernacular. That's what reminded me of Illinois. I said, wait, we had the Illinois Hemp Growers Association all the way back in the olden days of the Chillinois podcast, and we talked about a variance that was issued by IDOA that, from what I remembered, was similar to that. I'm not even going to try to take a stab at it. I'm going to let either of you remind us that, yes, that is something that's allowed in Illinois, right?
I'll take this one. So I what
I know I just
exactly
pitched
the
a lot at you,
no,
the
you gotta love
story
Box
and the
Brown. I mean,
question, but
in one page he summarizes it so beautifully. But exactly what happened in Missouri, no. That I don't think you can do that in Illinois either. What you can do is, as a dispensary or a cultivator, a licensed cultivator, you can purchase biomass, or you can purchase hemp biomass, or you can purchase extracted hemp. What you do with it after that, maybe that's what's happening. that would just be speculation on my part, as if if they're taking CBD and doing that conversion to THCA or THC and then putting it into they calling it a distillate cartridge, or whatever they want to call it, throw some terpenes on it and call it cannabis oil, which that may be
Wait, so
happening.
they're like, is the distinction like they're only allowed to buy like extracted stuff in biomass? They can't buy like if they extracted the CBD and then turned it into THC, they can't buy that,
Correct. That's
right? Okay.
that's back when this policy was issued. I don't think anyone was aware that it was even possible. And so it was, the way it was written was, you can buy extracted CBD, and you can buy biomass for the purposes of extracting CBD from it.
Okay, because anyway, yeah, keep going. I'll have a question in a minute.
No, I think the creativity of the people who are doing this processing is laudable, I think. And as Box Brown put it, it's a way around the draconian regulations that we have right now. And there's nothing inherently wrong with this. Again, um, in the comic here, in the lower left hand panel, it is chemically the same. It's true. There is no safety concern with consumption of THC, and it's the it's the same thing. The only difference is one is sanctioned by the state and the other one is somewhat of a gray area within the state, depending on the state. And typically it's the states that have legal recreational or medical sales that are most opposed to this type of activity. Illinois probably being one of the exceptions here. But again, and I know I mentioned this the first time we spoke about this, Cole, years ago, is that there's no mandate in Illinois' regulation for that hemp to come from Illinois. So it doesn't help hemp farmers in Illinois one bit. Now, I've never met a hemp farmer in Illinois who has said, "Oh yeah, I sell stuff to cultivators and dispensaries all the time," because it's just not happening. They're buying bulk isolate or bulk distillate from who knows where at bargain prices, and then doing whatever they want with it after that. I doubt that there's any kind of real traceability
Well, but
attached to
and
any of it.
that's what I was going to say is we know that they, at least some of the companies have converted the stuff into at least like Delta 8 because there's been like
Right.
cartridges sold.
I've
So
tried
even if,
some. Yeah.
yeah, so
Out of
like,
the dispensary.
From the
yeah,
dispensary. That's
so
that's what I
so
like to
they
tell people.
are, yeah, like
Like,
even if they had that, like even if they made that CBD themselves and didn't buy it from somewhere, which I would doubt they would waste the money doing that, like they're converting stuff into these synthetic cannabinoids to put into their products. So it's doubtful they wouldn't be doing that with like this hemp that they're buying.
Right. I mean, when you can, it's it's hard to not imagine that is happening when it just makes such an absurd amount of economic sense.
right.
Right, like when I can get 1,000, or I can get a kilo of THCA isolate or THC distillate for $100 instead of $1,000. Well, why wouldn't I do that, especially when everything I'm seeing looks like I'm allowed to do this as a license holder.
Yeah, and I mean it just makes you really curious too, because like there's other infusers who are limited to buying their distillate from these large scale producers. So it's like, are they buying essentially hemp produced cannabinoids just like through a third party?
Yeah, why
Like
not?
that's yeah.
And, and if I could, just to put a before we go any further, I maybe you said this already. I was preparing my cannabis just to put a fine point on the variance. The biomass can be used in infused products, right? And I believe, first of all, that's right, correct? Infused products.
Yeah. No,
Like it's not that it would be you would see smokable flower. Again, it's the biomass, so it's going to be like an extracted product or an edible. Is the point I'm trying to
yeah,
make.
I'll pull it up and confirm that for you. But yeah,
Oh
it
yeah, and you've got
was
the variants, so please do share that.
yeah, they I know they definitely did not allow them to bring in smokable flower. Like that
Right.
wasn't even ever a consideration, which I think makes a lot of sense if people want to smoke CBD. Like it doesn't take up canopy space that way, allowing them to purchase it from other sources. It won't take up their canopy space. It makes a lot of economic sense to do that as well, but they never considered that. But yeah, it was for infused products, and I want to just confirm if it was also for inhalable products, not just ingestibles or
Well,
topicals.
vape carts are classified as an infused product, I believe.
Okay, then yeah, then it
Yeah,
that
but
it
concentrates wouldn't be, I think.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah,
Not sure.
I'll have to look at the language again on that one, but yeah, that's ringing some bells.
Do you mind sharing the variants? I might be able to pull it up from what you had sent me, but do you have that just so that we can look at it? I thought it was interesting to see that some of the specific cannabinoids that it had listed, but if my memory is correct, like it does give you permission to convert, like you said. It's just interesting to see that in text. Um, And I also want to give you the space while you pull that up and display for our audience to talk about what you had planned to talk about with regard to this Missouri. I feel like we kind of got off. I wanted to put a fine point on what this variance did do, but um, I apologize if I took you off point on the point you were about to make.
No, this is all just part of the conversation. So I've got the they call it it was last updated in March of 22. It's the Illinois Department of Agriculture's policy regarding hemp and hemp derivatives in medical and adult use cannabis products. If you want, I'll share the screen.
Sure. Yeah. Once again, folks, if you're listening and want to watch, it's chillinois.net/video. That link should still work, even when the Chillinois podcast is not Chillinois anymore. Okay. We're displaying the variants right now. And
Yeah, can you see this over here?
yeah,
Okay. So it defines cannabis and says cannabis is different than hemp in the first part. The second part says what industrial hemp is. Then it says cannabis business establishments licensed by the Illinois Department of Agriculture for cultivation, growing, processing, manufacturing, and or infusing of medical and or adult use cannabis products pursuant to the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act and or the Compassionate Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act, hereafter being called a cannabis cultivation center, may use industrial hemp as an ingredient in cannabis infused products offered for sale at licensed dispensaries in Illinois. Hemp flower may not be sold to dispensaries. And then point number 4 says all hemp obtained through this policy must be used in extracted form and only in infused cannabis products. Industrial hemp may be procured from a third party, licensed growers and or processors from within the state of Illinois or any other state with a regulated industrial hemp program. So every state has a regulated industrial hemp program. If you're not covered under your state, you're covered under USDA.
I love that
Um,
they could have just cut that sentence short and helped out Illinois hemp farmers like a lot more.
oh yeah, that would have been great, and it would have been on par with what they do in Illinois. You can't buy smokable flower in
Well, and
Illinois
it's
that was
funny
not
because they say yeah, like everything sold in Illinois has to be grown in Illinois, which clearly is not true.
exactly. And this is the looping this now. That's a perfect point to loop back to this Missouri situation. Um, that hemp that they bought that may very well have been grown in Missouri when they did that conversion, and it was certainly processed there when they did that conversion. And there's nothing, there's no health concern there, and to me, it's uh, the big point there, which I think the person
You're
who got
sharing your notes, just so you know, Chris.
okay, yeah, good. Sorry about that.
No,
But
it's okay. I
obviously
just wanted to
I
let you
take
know.
notes, I prepare.
It's all good. Yeah, I just wanted
So
to let you know in case.
yeah, thanks. And what I was gonna say was the big point there is that a third party ended up purchasing that. They spent over $300,000. Like that's a big investment for a small business, and they purchased $300 worth, 300,000 worth of product, and it's now tagged as illegal and not to be sold in the state. They are still in possession of it. They're stuck with it. They can't do anything with it. Maybe they can go to another state and try to sell it, but now you're moving it across state lines, and yeah,
why was it deemed like illegal though?
Because the hemp program in Missouri says that you can't sell hemp as THC. Like that the THC
Oh,
has to
okay.
come from natural cannabis source. It can't be from chemically converted from hemp source.
I love that we're in like, to me, those are like the same words.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
love that. It's like,
the amount of complexity that's involved here to understand like what's going on there. But in the end, like the business got screwed. You know
yeah,
that company that was doing that was converting and selling them like they were legit THC products, they were charging full price for them, and the business that bought into that had no idea, and now they're gonna have legal action. But guess what? That money's already gone. If you think a cannabis business is holding on to 300K, you're insane. They have no money. They will not be getting that money. This is going to be a legal fight, and no one's going to win. That's the most harm that's done here. None of the customers are going to be harmed. Nobody. Even if they were to sell all of that, there would probably be no complaints. Most people wouldn't even notice the difference.
Because it's still going to pass all of the state regulated tests, to your point. That's what you mean
Yeah,
when no customers are going to be harmed.
yeah,
Um, yeah, there's just this weird thing, and I feel like we shouldn't move any further on this topic than you made a point already, but I just wanted to really, look this point right in the face. Like, there is no difference. It is, even David Lakeman said it in a presentation that I recently published on my Patreon page. He said, as we all know, because there were a lot of hemp farmers in the room, the distinction is largely arbitrary, or something to that effect, basically saying that we all know it's the same plant. And so I just wanted, the point I wanted you to take on, Chris, if you don't mind. Some people will say something to the effect of like, I don't want to try that chemical bullshit, the converted, like, how do you take that point on? Because I feel like it's rooted in a misunderstanding, but can you take that point on?
yeah, sure. I guess what I would say is like, there's probably no concern to be had over the active chemical itself. What you're most likely concerned about is product that was not converted 100% of the way. It may have something residual inside of it. So there are simple tests that you can do for residual solvents or residual acids or whatever reagents are being used in the conversions. And one of them I'm not a chemist, and I don't do this process myself, but one of them that I've heard that is very simple is simply testing the pH of your product.
Yeah.
And because acid is used in, like Lewis acids are used in the synthesis of delta 8, for example, in some cases, if you take a pH test and it's acidic, then it's likely that there is some residual solvent or acid in your mix. But if it tests as a neutral pH, either they neutralized it to cover it up or it's clean. And so that's just one example of sort of additional testing that could be done to ensure that anyone who does have a concern would be less hesitant to give those things a try. But if we're talking about any isolated cannabinoid, like I don't think there's any safety concerns with any isolated cannabinoids, at least the naturally occurring ones.
Yeah. And I just a point that Phil brought up earlier, like, I just think it is ironic to see so much hate for a certain cannabinoid, delta 8. We don't have to focus on delta 8, but there is a lot of like animosity directed towards Delta 8. And again, I tried Delta 8 before it was all the rage in a
Before it was cool.
dispensary. Before it was cool, yeah. Like it was a grassroots product. I'll go ahead and say the name, but they're not the only person that has made these types of products in Illinois. Other people have sent me products they've tried from Illinois dispensaries. So obviously it's
Well,
not a
that's why I say we know they're doing this.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
my question, I guess, in bringing up, I feel like I didn't do a great job, and that was a real question that I read online. I don't do this chemical bullshit, but like, it's weird when I was originally exposed to legal cannabis, part of it was like, hey, you know how it's always been about THC? We're gonna be able to talk about all these other cannabinoids. And now it seems like they're like, no, 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 we should only talk about these two cannabinoids. Like, it's like, I don't understand where somebody got scared, and it's just weird to me. You know, I know we'll get to Minnesota later, but we had somebody from Minnesota on, and they literally told me you can only sell products with THC and CBD in it, but like anything else, even in a legal dispensary, even the Delta 8 products are not allowed to be sold. And it's just like, why? You know, so
Well,
I
I think
know.
it's because of this term synthetic that people have like
Thank you. Yeah.
glommed onto these
I think that is it.
compounds, or like what does synthetic even mean?
It's a great point. I don't know if we really discussed it on the last couple of times, but
I think we did a
so
little bit.
yeah, like DEA has a different definition of what synthetic means. I mean, for me, like the simplest way I explain it to like our members at the Hemp Growers Association is like, does it occur naturally in the plant? Yes. Well, then it's not synthetic. Like it's cut and dry, one sentence, anyone can understand it. It is a little bit more complicated than that. I've got a friend who's a chemist. I explained to him, he has nothing to do with cannabis, but I explained to him what is going on, had him look up what it is, and he said at best you could call this type of conversion semi-synthetic. But again, it that if it's semi-synthetic, it's not synthetic. And DEA has a very specific, because they're scheduling things as narcotics, they have a very specific definition of what synthetic is. And I think the fact that that word has invaded the discourse is, you know, it's essentially propaganda. It's the good one that I always hear that's way better than this is synthetic bullshit is Delta 8 is killing kids. It's laced with
Mm-hmm.
fentanyl and it's killing kids.
Yeah.
That's it doesn't matter if it's
Yes.
true. Now it's in your
I've
ears.
heard
Now
that.
you've heard it.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Delta 8, like THCO, these other compounds like do occur in the plant in like tiny amounts, right?
Delta 8, yes, and THCO, I think was determined to be synthetic because it does
Oh,
not
okay.
naturally occur. DEA came out and ruled or came out. I don't know if they ruled against it, but they came out and commented that any business that's engaged in selling that stuff they are selling synthetics. So like
Interesting.
I mean, and to me, that just confirms this, right? That they didn't come out against Delta 8. They came out against THCO because it does not naturally occur in the plant.
Very interesting. Well, did we round out our point on Missouri? I wanted to be sure to give you the space on that. I feel like you had addressed it, and you even talked about how they're kind of sitting on the cash and or sitting on it, but can't get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't know if the product's been seized or if I mean, they're probably just sitting on it. Like, I don't know what else you could do with it. I mean, besides relinquish it to the authority, right? And
Well,
I guess,
isn't it federally legal?
Yeah,
yeah. But in the state of Missouri, now you got a problem. And,
because it's in the metric system, right?
yeah. Well, it wasn't. It says in the article. It says it wasn't caught by the metric system. It was caught by an anonymous tipster. So somebody didn't like what they were doing, and they tipped off the government, and that's what blew the whole thing up.
Yeah. Would you? Well, I'm speaking outside of my understanding of seed to sale, but I think it would have been in metric. Like you say, it wasn't maybe caught by metric, but is it maybe the fact that because it is in metric, you can't just sell it across state lines, like you say, you know, because like in Illinois, you wouldn't, as far as I understand, you would not be able to do that, even if it was hemp, and there's a lot of cultivators that are selling what could be hemp, you know.
Yeah, I think, and I think this is just another example of states sort of overreaching on regulating within their boundaries,
Mhm.
and we saw this recently also in Arkansas. What was his name? Judge Billy Ray Williams or something like that was his name, and he's a federal circuit judge, and he ruled that Arkansas's law was unconstitutional because they banned the possession of Delta 8 in Arkansas, and it's a federally legal substance. So when the topic that came up, or that's one sentence summary of this was farmers turned into felons overnight, because the farmer who's selling Delta 8 products happily and safely to his regular customers, now all of that activity, you're now a felon, and any business that plans to transport Delta 8 through Arkansas is committing a felony, which as Judge Billy Ray so graciously put it, that's unconstitutional. You can't create legal entrapment in your state. Like, as soon as you cross this line, now you're under arrest. When every other surrounding state, you're cleared to just transport as you will.
Does that bode well if Illinois tries to
I was wondering the same thing.
ban these
Yeah.
things?
I just feel like that's going to be another challenge. I it's
Or I guess they wouldn't be banning them; they would just be like regulating a certain segment of the business
yeah,
out of business.
ultimately the judge
Right.
decided that it was because of the wording. It was because it was so
Right.
strict. If they would have allowed for transportation or possession but not sales, then that's a different story. But the states just, they get overzealous and they do silly things like Missouri. It's not illegal because it's unsafe. It's illegal because of a technicality.
Insane.
But
It's
if
insane.
Illinois, like going back to Illinois, like if Illinois wants to try to do the same thing, first of all, there's no way they're going to get it done before the Farm Bill kicks in, and hopefully the Farm Bill changes something, so that Illinois can just follow suit and not get into the same legal trouble that Missouri and Arkansas and so many other places are getting in, Minnesota are getting into, with trying to regulate THC and CBD, and very specifically, and creating these labyrinths on top of each other of regulation. But if we were to do that, I think if this happened tomorrow, you would see a similar case. If they ban the sales but not possession, maybe they'd get away with it. But if they did something similar to Arkansas, you could see the exact same thing happening again. This is the second time that a federal circuit judge has said, "Don't mess with Delta 8."
Nice. Nice. Hey, do you mind sharing that variance again? I just wanted to display point number 8. I thought it was pretty interesting. I don't really have anything other than that. I just wanted to, in case folks didn't catch point number 8, I thought it was pretty interesting. And then I also wanted to just ask you, while you pull that up and share that, um, I wanted to ask you about the farm bill. I've tried to explain this to Phil, but truthfully, I don't know enough about like where we stand and stuff. But again, that presentation that I recently saw with David Lakeman made me feel like I was at least somewhat on track with my understanding. And I just thought maybe you could maybe fill in the gaps. I'm under the understanding that right now we're kind of functioning under like a 2014 farm bill, but we're working on updating our policies to reflect the 2018 farm bill. And David Lakeman made the joke that by the time we're done doing that, the 2023 farm bill will be out. Can you can you fill in the gaps on that? And I guess before we do that, just in case people are listening, since you're displaying point number 8, my apologies for throwing multiple topics at you, but it's just that part, the industrial hemp flower part, is what stood out to me. I thought that they could only purchase the biomass, but I think what you're saying is it must be extracted. Like, in order to be sold, it must be extracted. But they can purchase, they can purchase hemp, like all forms, it seems, almost.
Yeah, if you're willing to find someone who will sell you
Hemp flower.
flower only for extraction, you'd just be
Is
paying
that
more.
rare in bulk?
Yeah, biomass is pretty much all that you're going to be able to find
In bulk, yeah.
nowadays. Like decent 8% biomass is actually kind of hard to come by. Um, there's less and less of it as we continue producing. Like acreage is pretty low, and the oversupply from 2019 is gone or old, and so yeah, that's all you're going to find. You're not going to find a hemp producer who's willing to sell you their flower for biomass prices unless they're extremely desperate and they're like going through bankruptcy and have to liquidate.
Hmm.
Because they would have, like, just to clarify that for people, they would have processed the plants and like trimmed them to just the flower. Yeah.
Exactly. To try to push that CBD concentration as high as possible. And that was definitely a practice early on where they had what they were calling biomass, which is just flower and leaf. It was, they call it shucked or no stems. And that was like, 12, 13, 15% material ready for extraction. That stuff doesn't exist anymore. Like all that stuff was bought up and extracted because of the efficiency that you get from that purity of material. And now that we've had a few years to navigate, 8% seems to be the magic number. So we could get into the whole, how to get there with the industrial hemp production program now. Like, if you're interested in producing 8% biomass, there's many viable ways to do that. The USDA rules and the current farm bill allow you a pretty significant grace period of 30 days plus or minus 5 days. So you could get a compliant test and then continue to flower for 5 more weeks and then take that material to extraction. And even if you test non-compliant 30 days before harvest, you have the opportunity to remediate, which means you can selectively blend stem and leaf into your flower to reduce the THC and remain compliant. But going on about the farm bill, yeah, like going back to what David Lakeman said about the current rules. So I know we touched on this last time we talked. We submitted some oral testimony in February or beginning of March about this. The what they're trying to do is get their hemp production plan approved by the USDA. IDOA, the Illinois Department of Ag, is trying to get their hemp plan approved, and they had made some very minor changes, and we're just hoping to kind of rush it through without anybody taking note. Of course, us and a few other stakeholders caught wind of it, and we realized that when rule changes go through and they're pushed into JCAR um, in Illinois, then it opens up the opportunity for the public to request a hearing. And so we did that, and they granted it. They didn't have to grant it, but they did. And we came in and gave our testimony. Since then, we haven't heard any movement, haven't heard of any movement on that. So it's been, more than 6 months since then. And that's kind of the feeling I got when we gave the testimony in the first place. Was this is a farm bill year. This is Illinois we're talking about, so it's going to be pretty slow. And I don't blame them. It's when that as we build our little towers of complexity here in our states about surrounding cannabinoids, um, there may be a federal tidal wave coming to wipe it all out, right? Like if for whatever reason, and this would be my greatest dream, so that I don't have to pollute my mind with these labyrinthian regulations, that the farm bill just says, you know what, cannabis is legal. Sorry guys, like it's over. Stop with building your little kingdoms, and let's figure this out from square one again.
Well, I
That
mean,
would be
that's the
amazing.
stupid, but that's the
I
stupid
don't.
thing, right? Is the 2018 Farm Bill pretty much did that already.
Yeah, it did give access to cannabis to more people than ever. And
Right.
the benefit of that, I think, is not, it's not just an economic one. It's it's an it's like an unquantifiable benefit, because you don't know how much cannabis improves people's lives. You don't know that the people, like, it's that classic meme of that guy, like, he gets to smoke some weed for the first time in a long time and he just starts crying because he gets such relief, right? Like, you don't know how many times that's happened. That's happened since the farm bill got some form of THC or some form of cannabinoid into people's hands. That's
I feel
probably,
like I would do the analogy that like Delta 8 is to Delta 9 as the 2018 Farm Bill would be to full legalization.
yeah, like a watered down version. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
because like
It's
just in practicality, I just wanted to do an experiment and order some Farm Bill compliant products. So I ordered like a case of some hemp derived Delta 9 ice cream, and I ordered some THCA flower from some company in North Carolina. And I paid for them with a credit card. They both showed up at my doorstep within 2 days, delivered by USPS.
And that's
Like
what I had in mind.
if that's not
Right.
legalization, pretty much.
Right.
Like this is what I'm smoking right now is that hemp flower. And it's as good as any stuff I'd get from a dispensary.
yeah. And so that's what I would love to see is, Farm Bill 2023, just, it turns cannabis into a legal commodity across the board. That, what are the chances of that? What are the odds in Vegas? I don't know. Probably not very good. Um, I I think we'll get some kind of token relief, like they'll bump the THC percentage up from zero point 0.3 to
Right.
1.0, or they'll we may see that they separate CBD from industrial, or hemp cannabinoids, from industrial hemp, fiber and grain, which in my opinion, that's just adding more complexity. It will give relief to, and we support the industrial uses being separate, just because we know so many people who wish they didn't have to test, or they would grow if they didn't have to test. They would,
Like something like people making like hempcrete or
exactly. Yeah,
rope or
if
things
you're
like
growing
that.
like ultra dense plantings for food or fiber, it makes no sense. And that was part of the testimony that we gave in March was, look, there are common sense ways to verify that this crop is not going to be used for narcotic or illegal purposes, or even just cannabinoid production in general, just by looking at it. Essentially, like,
Right. Yeah.
there's so many good uses that are there that are needlessly expensive because of testing that shouldn't ever be happening. Like, you have to test your microgreens, you have to test your clones, you have to test, like, plants that have zero flower on them still technically need to be tested before being sold. And so that was part of our feedback to them. And again, will that actually go through? I mean, look, the farm bill was, we were supposed to see a draft of the farm bill by the end of this month. From last I've heard, it's not going to be this month. It's going to be next month at some point. So I advise everyone to keep an eye out for that. And if if the draft does come out, first thing you can do is search that document for instances of the word hemp, and just look through all of them and see what changes there might be. Maybe you won't be aware of the 2018 rules and definitions, but the first thing you would look for is the definition of hemp, and see what the difference is between 2018 and 2023. I think there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people just waiting for that draft to come out so that they can start writing blog posts and creating content based on that alone, and us being one of them. And we'll see what comes. And we have this whole, like, budget negotiation thing happening at the federal level. Is the government going to shut down and whatnot? But it's pretty clear that we will have a farm bill before the end of the year. Like, same as thing that happened to 2018 farm bill. It's supposed to be passed in September. It's not. It took till the end of the year, and that's what we'll see again this year.
And just before we switch to our next topic, IllinoisHGA.com, right?
Yeah, that's right. Illinois HGA.
Nice. I'm proud of myself. So I know you wanted to talk about Canra. I didn't mean to switch gears to that though, if you were wanting to finalize on that, or I don't know. I've seen that name pop up recently, so that's why I bring it up. What do you want to talk about next?
Yeah, we can go into Canra. I think it's a good direction to go from our last topic because um, Canra sent a letter to the House
And what
Committee
is
on
Canra
Agriculture.
for our
So
listeners?
Canra is the Cannabis Regulators Association. It's spelled CANNRA, Canra. They have their own website, which it's an association of what they call themselves is a nonpartisan association representing cannabis and hemp regulatory agencies from 45 member states and U.S. territories. And so this is something that I think David Lakeman is a part of, or at
I was
least he
about to ask. I think
supports.
he's a yeah.
Yeah, and I think people look to them as an authority because they are so widespread and they are directly involved with regulation. However, what we see from some the guy, I'm going to give him a shout out right now, his name is Rod Kite. He's got a great blog post that he just published today on this. That's KIGHT Kite. Rod Kite has a blog post today that says, "Is Canra the new face of cannabis prohibition?" And I think it's a rhetorical question. I think the answer is yes. From what we're seeing with these regulators, basically what they're doing is creating job security for themselves. They want these layers of complexity. They'll have more work than they can handle for the next 100 years if they get to institute a different set of regulations for CBD, a different set of regulations for THC, a different set of regulations for Delta 8, a different, like, they will, if left to their own devices, I think they would create 100 different cannabis regulation and tax situations for each cannabinoid. And recently, they did put some, like I said, on September 15th, they wrote a letter to the House Committee on Ag and the Senate Committee on Ag, Nutrition, and Forestry. And they are talking about changing the definition of hemp. And, what they're talking about is separating cannabinoid production from fiber and grain production, which is a good suggestion. They start with a good suggestion, but they don't realize, like, some of the changes that they suggest, which are changes to like seed. Like, they don't, like, right now there's another, like you were saying, Philip, you can basically, all cannabis seed is now legal. It's all legal hemp because it doesn't contain zero point 0.3 THC. It doesn't matter if it's, skunk number one or Northern Lights, they're going to produce 20% THC once they're fully grown and flowered. The seed itself is legal hemp. So they are trying to close that loophole by saying this seed cannot be sold as legal hemp if it came from a plant that was not legal hemp. And it's like, do you understand the amount of complexity that this is what do you, like, this will, like I said, they'll have enough work for 100 years if they do, if this is enacted. And not only that, but it'll put a lot of people out of business. Uh, so anyway, Rod Kite wrote a great blog post about this. Check out his website. I agree with him. Shout out to Rod if you're listening. I just sent you a LinkedIn request, man. Uh, and so anyway,
I
I
can't even
think
figure out though how that rule would make sense, because wouldn't any seed producing cannabis plant technically be hemp? Like
yeah, that's what
it
I'm saying.
wouldn't have
Well,
THC in it.
you could still get flowers that are well above 0.3% THC that are seedy, but would be considered, cannabis and not hemp.
Like, yeah, I guess.
You definitely can. I mean, all the stuff we used to get when we were kids, you pick all the seeds out, and it was
Well, but
still,
like, yeah, I guess my understanding is that like all THC starts as THCA. So like, wouldn't any THC, like those plants would still technically be hemp unless they change that.
Right. Yeah. Let me see. It says, oh, it says total. It says total. So they're trying to they're trying to use the same conversion. Like so for and this is in the farm bill as well, which I think if it wasn't, then the THCA stuff would have much more like clear legal standing. But they try to use the same conversion of THCA times 0.877,
Oh,
and then
okay.
they add that to the delta 9 to get your total THC. Yeah, this is the letter I'm talking about, Cole.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, they give the example there. For example, THC concentration must be total THC. But yeah, and then they're trying to, shut down the whole. Well, if I sell you a 1 pound chocolate bar, then I can put 0.3% THC by weight into that chocolate bar, and you have a really kick-ass high dosage chocolate bar that you need to eat like little pieces of at a time. Otherwise, you'll get catapulted into another dimension.
In the best way.
And this is the type, I think this is a perfect jumping off point to talk about Minnesota as well. Like it's in Minnesota they have, and same with Illinois, they have dosing limits, right? It's like in a package of gummies or whatever edibles, you have by the way, I'm not related to Adria Berry in any way.
Okay, I was about to ask. Is
um,
this your insider?
yeah, I don't have any family in Oklahoma, but in Illinois and Minnesota and many states, they have these limits on the amount of THC that can be per serving, and amount of THC that can be per package. And hemp producers don't have the same limits, so they're doing these big chocolate bars, giant gummies, giant cookies, and you can get 200 milligrams of THC in one serving. And this is what this is a recent news story. The lady's name was Erin Dupree. She was all set. She was appointed by the governor. She was ready to make that like $150,000 salary as the cannabis czar of Minnesota. And she resigned on her first day because a smear piece was printed on about her on Minnesota Public Radio and the Star Tribune, where they dredged up all like her past for like 15 years, but also they dug up some evidence that her hemp business that she owned, which she divested from when she got her position in government. Uh, her hemp business was selling these products. They were selling these products that exceeded dosages and may have even exceeded compliance levels in some cases. So like it's another perfect example of like
But
similar.
like compliance levels and serving rules at like the state level.
Right. Well, compliance well, Minnesota does have its own hemp program, so it would be at the state level, but it's also if it was USDA, it would be the same, the 0.3%. So like some of
Oh,
the
okay. She
vapes that
was
she was
over
selling,
that. Yeah.
yeah, they were made with distillate. The distillate at higher than 0.3%. Yeah, this is the yeah. So it's gone national now. But you look at the local news sources and like they dredged up her whole past. Like they started talking about how she has tax liens against her, and she got into legal battles 12 years ago when she was consulting as a home remodeling person or something. Like there's no reason to print any of that stuff, and I feel bad for her. Like, but she resigned because she didn't like. This is the best way to just make it all stop. Like that's a terrible way to start with with a public position, right, under a cloud of controversy, and this would have just followed her indefinitely for her whole career. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I froze up there.
No. Oh, maybe I froze up on your end, but I didn't lose you.
Okay, my audio came through.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, she resigned, and it's like I said, it's another perfect example, like similar to what happened in Missouri, of these technicalities, these regulations. Like there were no complaints from her customers. There were no you know, dissatisfied customers or people that were harmed by this. You know, it's a technicality. We got you on a technicality, and so now it's a catastrophe. Even though it's, you know, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. But this is going back to that same, you know, propaganda, right? Delta 8's killing kids. So once you hear it,
I mean, they literally, there was a guy, wasn't the guy from Starbuds that said that on Chicago Tonight?
I think, yeah,
Delta Delta 8 is killing kids.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah.
Like a cannabis operator in Illinois that sells Delta 8.
Right. That was interesting about that report. I don't know if you have any takes on that, Chris. I think we lost you
He's
for a
just like
second, but
on a business angle, he's like trying to run his competition out of business. And that's like, you know, I'm sure
yeah.
he could care less if he loses his own Delta 8 business because he's got a cannabis license to have an actual dispensary. So
oh yeah, I did lose the very beginning of that. Can you just repeat the very beginning? This is in Illinois, right?
yeah, there's like a Chicago talk show, and they had a debate with like LaShawn Ford, um, the guy from Shitiva, Charles Wu, um,
And yeah,
Alderman
Kareem,
Hopkins.
yeah, Kareem Kenyatta from Starbuds.
Yeah. And
Starbucks,
the
that
guy
was
from
the guy.
Starbucks just threw in at one point, like, it's killing kids about Delta 8.
Yeah, that. Like I said, man, it's just it's out there. As soon as you get it out there, that's all you need to do. But yeah, I remember Rachel telling me about this, and it's that I think I already mentioned this. Like anyone who's in favor of this complexity, they're creating job security for themselves, and you know, like government is interested in creating more regulation and more taxes. Businesses are interested in eliminating the competition. Um, we are neither one of those things. I mean, we are a business. The Illinois Hemp Growers Association is a business, but we don't participate in either one of those things. We think, you know, we're one of the few voices here in Illinois that's more about common sense, I think, and just broad legalization, which apparently is rare. I think everyone has some kind of vested interest in this, and
Mm-hmm.
we've been pretty objective, I think, for the past 5 years. And you know, I'm happy to have my mind changed, but from what I'm seeing and for what we're seeing just here in our state, and being dragged into this cannabinoid stuff, you know, all we ever wanted to do was build a mill and grind some hemp fiber and make some cool T-shirts and stuff like that. Like that's all we. But we, but, you know, but we get dragged into this stuff, and we try to approach it, I guess, with the mindset of a farmer, right? Like I think that's the best way to look at a lot of things is how is this affecting me as a farmer? If I chose to farm this stuff, what do I have to go through? And looking at it through that lens, like you can see why acreage has trended down consistently year after year after year since the 2018 Farm Bill.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to dwell on this too far, but this is meant to be not trying to dwell on this too long. However, I did want to give you the compliment that I do think that, you're one of the few associations that I'm aware of that is pushing for what I consider to be some semblance of true legalization. Like what you're fighting for is not to criminalize farmers. In fact, it's the opposite. Like we had you on in the past to argue against some of the proposals as you mentioned. If those things would have come to be, we would have seen that same type of headline that you referenced earlier, felons overnight, you know? And so I just wanted to thank you for what you do, just briefly, and recognize that because again, I don't know that I can name another association in Illinois, at least. I wish I could name like more people and groups and associations that, like I say, kind of fight for what I consider to be legalization, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a few of us out there, but thank you very much, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think like Rod Kite is somebody who's
Yeah.
also in the same boat. I think there's a guy out of Maryland, Levi Sellers, he runs an association, hemp association there, and Again, I've read some of his stuff, and it's very similar to our stuff. You know, we fight for the farmers, we fight for common sense, and we believe that broad legalization isn't going to kill children. Like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And I guess what I meant was like in Illinois, because I mean I can definitely think of at least one organization that Phil told me about, META, the Marijuana Industry Trade Organization with Dimitri Downing. Like he's super anti limited licenses. And so that's an association, I can point to that's like, okay, they're trying to fight for like the farmer and try to fight. I mean, really what I'm trying to focus on is the answer shouldn't be criminalization. That's like the
Yeah.
enforcement mechanism shouldn't be
or
criminalization.
more or absurd amounts of regulation.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so when you say he's against license limits, well, why do we have licenses? It's only because it's a Schedule 1 substance. If it wasn't
yeah, true.
Schedule 1, and we didn't touch on that at all tonight, but definitely we could jump into this another
Sure, yeah,
time, is the Schedule 3 debate. In the industry, they're like, well, we can reschedule it to Schedule 3 instead of Schedule 1, and that would make it easier and better. And some people are like, no, absolutely not, this is ridiculous, just get it off the schedule. Why are we playing this game? And other people are like, no, this is good, we have to take this because it's incremental progress and it will open up more opportunities and this and that, banking and etc. But again, if it's a scheduled substance, you are enforcing regulation. You are creating the opportunity for felonies to be had over lack of license, etc. So like ultimately they're just going to do whatever they want to do. Drug policy is not voted on by the people, right? It's set by people who are mostly appointed, and it's administrative policy. It's not democratically voted on. Um, it's an issue within elections, but we don't get a choice. And so if they want to go Schedule 3, I guess what can we do to stop them? But I think the you're not on the right side of history. I guess I would say, if you think that that's a reasonable solution. I think all it does is continue this ridiculous complexity, and we'll deal with it if we have to. But uh, just like with CBD being an approved drug, it created so many issues. Epidiolex is the drug. Because of that, FDA is extremely hesitant to do anything with it, and feels like they need to create a new regulatory pathway just to regulate CBD, and any other, like Delta 8 or other cannabinoids. So it's like by agreeing or like allowing these artificial barriers to exist, this Schedule 3 barrier, Schedule 1 barrier, the Epidiolex is a drug barrier, by accepting these roadblocks into our regulation, into our understanding of how this industry works, we are starting off with a handicap. And I'm an engineer. Like, let's do root cause analysis here. Like, let's look at what's causing the problem. Let's not build a new machine on top of the broken machine. Like,
Is
let's
it, sorry, is Epidiolex just CBD?
yeah, it's basically CBD isolate in pill form.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've done
I was just
safety
I was
studies
just
on.
reading I was just reading a thing about cannabis laws in like Singapore, whatever reason. And they were saying like I was reading there's two people that are like authorized to use Epidiolex, but they use it as like literally a last treatment option. It's like it's a naturally occurring substance. You go through all
Well,
these synthetic drugs
you get
and all
into
these
the
treatments to get to CBD.
yeah, well, you get into this
But yeah, it's like it's similar to like the FDA, right? They're like, oh, because it's called Epidiolex, it's a drug. So now we got to treat CBD like it's this real significant thing, but it's just a natural, like holistic medicine.
yeah. No, and they I was going to say they did safety studies on children. They
Right.
gave children like high doses of Epidiolex for like extended periods of time and found that there was no harm. And it has a generally well accepted safety profile. Like that, there's no debate on that. Like even like pediatricians who are like staunchly opposed to medical or recreational THC, they will, without hesitation, prescribe Epidiolex because it has a good safety profile in the U.S. Now, when you want to talk about Singapore or other like East Asian countries, the history of drugs out there is much
Right.
different,
Right.
and partially,
Yeah.
British colonists are to blame, and etc. That's a whole nother discussion, but yeah, I mean, and I spent some time in Japan last year, and there cannabis was not around. It's acceptable to get completely wasted in public off of alcohol, but I didn't see anyone smoking cannabis. I didn't smell it, nothing.
It's probably not that great, and it's probably super expensive.
Well, it's similar, like it's treated the same as heroin in Japan, and
Hmm.
things are changing there as well. But I was able to get CBD while I was there.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, all I'll say about like rescheduling is just that, I think he started when the whole speech that's our President Joe Biden gave to start the rescheduling process. I believe the first few sentences that he said was nobody should be in jail for cannabis possession, and in fact it's already legal in many states. That's how he like starts the speech. And what I've seen people like Justin Streckle, former communications director, I think, on Normal, he's said on Twitter is that this is not fulfilling his campaign promise to decriminalize cannabis. This is just, as you said, rescheduling. There's still many criminal penalties that could and would remain, uh, just if this went through untouched.
yeah.
So
I think it's funny, the wording that he chose to use there, because I remember it clearly. It's said for simple possession,
yeah,
and simple possession is hardly ever the charge. Um, if
right.
you get arrested with an eighth in your pocket, and you also happen to have a pocket knife in that pocket, now it's a different crime. Now it's a drug and weapon crime. So it's hardly ever is anybody just busted for possession. And so even if you were to fulfill that promise to get everyone out who was busted for simple possession, you still have probably 2 or 3 times as many people sitting around because they happened to get busted while they had their hunting rifle in the truck, or they had some other circumstances which led them to have more than one charge, and it would escalate the drug charge that they ultimately get convicted on. And so conveniently, that's what politicians are best at, is look at me, I'm doing something good, but it's like you're only giving us just the tiniest little crumb. And you could do so much better if you just like you were saying earlier, Philip, if they just would have left off the back half of that sentence in the cannabis policy for Illinois, it would have helped out Illinois a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, were there other topics that we hadn't gotten to? I feel like there was at least one that was on your list that we hadn't discussed. Am I wrong?
Well, we mentioned Canada and Minnesota and
Okay.
Missouri, and I guess just my wrap up here about all of this, and I think it's been pretty clear from the way that we've been discussing this, but the industry as a whole, cannabis and hemp, is reaching like this critical mass where something has to give. And like I said, I would love to see the federal tidal wave of broad legalization just wipe it all away. But with industrial hemp being split from cannabinoid hemp, being split from medical and recreational cannabis, no one, it seems like there's nobody out there in a position of power, at least, who's willing to admit that this situation is just ridiculous. It's like that, it's that picture of the dog in the house that's on fire,
Yeah.
and he says, "This is fine."
Right.
That's where we are right now, and I think it's not just the inside of the house now; it's like the whole neighborhood, and everybody's in each other's business about this. And in Illinois, we're still not out of the woods. Like, we have the veto session coming up, and they still could move to change something about hemp in that session. I've heard from politicians on both sides saying, well, it's not going to happen. It's not appropriate for this session. But also I've heard people say people are embarrassed and they want to get something done. They
Yeah.
promised the lobbyists promised that this would happen, and that, there's big money behind this and something is going to get done about this.
Well,
So
it's not a coincidence that we're seeing stories about it and like this push in Chicago. Like, they're of course they're going to try.
Well,
yeah,
and
they ramped it up before May. Back in May, they ramped it up
Yeah.
too with the stories about the teenagers who got their hands on it and had to go to the hospital.
I'll share more details later, but like the largest cannabis business association, I will just say in the state of Illinois without naming any names, it's one of the largest. I've obtained emails from them that indicate that it is one of their highest priorities. They've employed a new strategies consulting agency. I don't know exactly the name, but remarkably, it shares the same address as Alderman Hopkins.
Well, it's not the same address. They're like a couple doors down on the same floor in the Monadnock building.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Phil. They're really close. They're really close.
Very close.
And they just happen to be focused on the same agenda. And like I say, it's definitely, from what I can tell based off of these emails, going to be something that's coming back. So,
Yeah, this story it seems to be like their first like job with them. It was like, oh,
Yeah,
you might have noticed these stories you've seen. That's because we've hired this new PR team.
yeah. Yeah. And they said this
yeah,
is an example of that.
that was a good point that I brought up in our latest membership meeting, which was on the 15th. I didn't even get into the whole Hopkins thing, but it's like, I would love to see, I haven't heard anything out of Hopkins related to hemp or cannabis at all in the past 5 years, right? But all of a
Oh, the
sudden,
only thing I've seen is that
I
he's
was,
opposing a licensed dispensary in his neighborhood.
sure,
So,
right. So he's obviously anti-cannabis in some
I
way.
guess.
But as a public official, right, his salary is paid by tax dollars. Like, I would love to see what his schedule has looked like for the past few months, like since May, like who he's been dealing with, who's he been talking to. I don't know if we can do a FOIA on that, but that would be very interesting to see. I don't know
Well,
if
and
aldermen are subject to the same rules as state level employees, but I think he comes out 5 years late saying this is an emergency, this is a public health emergency, kids are dying. It's like, it's been 5 years, man. Like,
yeah.
yeah, and just happens to like be neighbors with this
that I didn't know.
firm.
I'm glad you guys brought that up. I didn't know that, but I mean, that's why I was saying at our meeting, like, I would love to see who you've been talking to. Well, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, Mac
Yeah.
Strategies or whatever they're called.
Max strategies. Yeah. We can, put that out there. Nobody's pushing for those products. And I'm glad that it was made clear in that debate. Nobody wants, and in fact, Mars Wrigley has sued companies that are doing things like that are making like look-alike products like Skittles and stuff like that. Like they are already, that's like an old story the Chicago Sun-Times did quite a while ago that will be in our upcoming document that we'll be releasing. But so it's like that company is already litigating against everybody that's trying to do something like that. So it's obviously not like a bright idea, but B, nobody is actually pushing for products like that. I'm not saying I think that I should be able to buy gummy bears and chips and everything else, but I'm not saying the packaging has to look so similar to other products that it could be confused. You know what I mean? But the last time we spoke, of course, we shared the Sunny D example with vodka. They make a Sunny D alcohol now, so it's like,
I
Well, right,
think
but
that
him like pulling those out, it's just like a red herring. It's
right.
like
Thank you. Yeah,
Delta 8 is killing kids, and they're putting it in packages that look like Cheetos and Chips Ahoy.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like,
I think those businesses are just upset because they're not officially licensing it. They would like you look at there's some energy drink. I don't want to endorse them, but they have flavors like Jolly Rancher and Swedish Fish. Those
sure.
are officially licensed, and they're definitely marketed to kids. But I think that's really what it is. Like if it was 100% legal, then these businesses would be jumping in and they would be like, yeah, come get your Delta 8 Cheetos straight from the source. Like Mars Chocolate is making M&M and THCs.
Can we also just step back and acknowledge that what we're agreeing on as a society is that that candy is definitely for kids? Like, isn't that interesting that we're
I would
like,
love to see the statistics on that. Yeah, I think definitely more adults eat candy than kids.
but also like, should kids be eating like that's kind of what I'm asking. Like, we've all been collectively like wondering like how, sugar is like a drug. And it's like it's funny that we're getting like weird about like, well, there's another drug in the most popular drug. And the kids might like, yeah, I don't know. It's just silly to me that that's
Look, well,
like
I said weed should be legal for kids if we're allowing them smartphones, social media, and sugar. So
that's my point, is all these other unhealthy things we're just like totally okay with. It's almost like we're endorsing candy for kids. We're like, yeah, we throw it out at parades. It's for kids. Yeah.
of course.
So I digress. So it sounds like we touched all of our bases. I know Rachel had mentioned, I don't know if she's there right now. I don't know if she wanted to mention, like, not sure exactly. I can't remember what
Yeah,
she.
I'm here. I'm here. What I wanted to mention was there's this survey, and the point of the survey is to perform an economic impact analysis of hemp-derived cannabinoids in the state of Illinois. And this is being done by Bo Whitney. He's done other economic analysis. There was one that I think we talked about the last time we were on the show, that was Florida. And it was great. It was great. We definitely want to see something like this happen in Illinois. We think that it will really help shine a light on just how much, economic benefit there is to farmers, to manufacturers, just to our local economy. What the survey wants to cover is the size of the current Delta hemp industry in Illinois, tax implications of regulating Delta hemp for the state, counties, municipalities, and the future growth potential. This can be found on our website. In the forum, a post was made under the title "The American Health, the Alternatives Association Hemp Survey." I will drop that link in the chat for you if you wanted to share that. That would be super appreciated. If listeners here are involved in the Delta hemp industry, please take the 5 minutes that you'll need to fill out this survey. Can only see good things come from it.
Yeah, I feel like it would be very interesting to see those numbers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, folks, we'll put that in the podcast description. I'm also displaying it right now if for those of you that just want to Google the headline, and it's on illinoishga.com, as Rachel mentioned. So thank you, Rachel. And before we go, I forgot this. I'd be interested to see just what you think about this. I had a person in the cannabis industry, a pretty well-known person, call me, and he wanted uh to speak to me off the record regarding, you know, uh cannabis and hemp. And so I'll keep all these comments off the record. I know I did just say he, but there's a lot of he's. So, um,
Pretty much all of them.
right,
Yeah, they're mostly
exactly.
he's.
So yeah, I didn't really give it away. I just, wanted to acknowledge that really quick. You heard me correctly. They said to me, when one critiques us, and I'm loosely because they said off the record, so I took notes. So, when one critiques us on our suggestion to clamp down on this, meaning the farm bill legal products, they'll say you're criminalizing honest and hardworking people out of the industry. Cole, do you want to know what my response is? So what? When we legalized cannabis, That's what we agreed on. It's still illegal to sell this stuff without a license. We're not saying it should be legal for everybody to sell this stuff. And the one of the closing points they had is which, you know, it's interesting. They say we still clamp down on the legacy market, which is far larger and has more colored people participating in it.
And he's okay with that, he says.
Right.
Yeah,
Do
that
you
reminds me of that Australian guy that just made the news recently for saying he wants to see unemployment go way up so that the workers know that they work for the employer and not the other way around.
Yeah.
It's a high level capitalist mindset there. Uh, not to say anything, not saying I'm a socialist or anything, but like late stage capitalism for sure.
Yeah.
And like like I
So
said,
I will say a little unemployment boost would help with the service industry a little bit. Service might get a little better.
like
It's been lagging since the pandemic.
I support my striking UAW brothers and sisters.
Oh,
all
of
right?
course. They're going to give us the 32-hour work week, I heard.
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
but
but sorry, go ahead.
it's just like you said, the response to that is, so what? It's like, we're happy with our little walled garden and we want to keep, it's our gated community. We want to keep everyone out. Like, we
Yeah.
bought our big $1 million mansion in the gated community, and not everyone's allowed in, and nor will they ever be if we get to do what we want to do. And we can, the same way that they say Delta 8's killing kids, I'll say, every bit of weed in the dispensary is moldy and it tastes like hay and it's sprayed with synthetic terpenes and it smells good and it has
All
bag appeal,
remediated.
and then all you do is smoke it and get a headache. And it's all of it. It's every bit of it. I have yet to see anything that's properly cured. Prove me wrong. Change my mind.
It's all remediated. I mean, we've had cultivators
Irradiated.
come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they grow it in shit conditions until it's about to fail, and then they nuke it and put it on the shelf. They do a quick cure and they throw it on the shelf.
Yeah.
The thing that strikes me about that, like the way he like phrased everything, even though that's like not his direct quote, it's like people like him and people with cannabis companies in Illinois often have this tone of like, we are the government. Like, we work hand in hand with the government and we establish all this. And this is our party. And it's like, no, this is a fight. And the reason legalization happened is because of people, not you.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, well, we're going to have a fight over this. And you don't get to write all the laws and just have your way all the time. So like, sit down. Like, I know you got one of these limited licenses, but like, that was probably a mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, look how shitty the market has turned out for everyone involved in it. Or everyone who wanted to get involved in it, I should say.
Yeah. Well said. And, the reason I brought that up is because it matches with something that has been said on the record that we have talked about with Representative LaShawn Ford. Advocates have said that social equity is market share. In other words, this entire thing, it is about market share, and they view hemp growers as competition to that market share. I mean, it's as clear as day.
Well, and just look at this newest like edible company that just got funding to open. They're like advertising themselves as some like real fruit juices added into these edibles. And in their press release, they're saying they're going to start at the dispensary for $36 for 100 milligram pack of edibles, of gummies. Like, that's why they want hemp producers gone. It's because they want to be able to sell 100 milligram of edibles for $36 and tell you it's for social equity.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, anything on that before we go?
That's like, when you sell a gram of flour for $20, which is already crazy expensive, you're getting at least 200 milligrams out of that. So, for you to sell me 100 milligrams at 36, that's where my mind goes right away. Is you're selling 100 milligrams for $36? That is insane.
But it's for
A gram of THC going for $360. You know, you can buy a kilo of CBD isolate for less than that. You know that, right?
right.
1,000 grams. That's how cheap cannabis should be. That's my opinion.
But again,
Oh
though,
yeah.
this is built on cannabis should not be cheap. I know you'd believe. I agree with you, Chris. I just want to say that before I say what I'm about to say. This is all built on cannabis should not be cheap. And I'm just gonna like loosely paraphrase our governor, like by limiting the number of licenses, we prevent the prices from getting so low that people get edged out of the market. And it's like, dude.
That's
So
not
it's
what the
like,
market's supposed to be about. It's supposed to be you
right,
produce for your friends and family, and they pay you what you choose to have it be worth, right? It's just like any other farmer. If I'm a farmer and I grow tomatoes, you're gonna pay me more for my tomatoes because they're way better than any shit you can get at the grocery store.
right. But like Phil said, it's like when you get that pack of edibles, 100 milligrams for $36, you're not paying for the edibles so much as you are paying for social equity.
Mhm. Like
Which are
thirty
supposed to
dollars
be
of that
funded through the
costs.
tax dollars anyway, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Well,
the
and I
whole
feel
thing.
like again was just supposed to be addressed through actually ending the criminalization of cannabis. Like if you're acknowledging that this cycle is what needs to end, why not actually end the policies that started the cycle? But we won't get into that. We're well over our time. I guess though, just to give you both room, I don't mean to not give you the room. Any thoughts on that before we go? Any
No,
things to
go ahead.
add?
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
No thoughts.
Yeah, I think I've I've brain dumped
Yeah.
just about as much as I can for today. But again, always happy to speak with you, Cole, about any of this stuff. And let's get on again and do another hour or so. It's been a good summer. We put together 3 episodes in about 3 or 4 months. So I'm
Well, what
very
the
excited.
veto session is in like a month, right?
Yeah, it's in October.
Yeah.
Well, then
And
So I
yeah,
wouldn't be
so
surprised.
yeah, exactly. But super excited to see what's next for Illinois, and um, keep us informed. We support you 100%.
yeah. Hey, thank you. Yeah, for all of your support over the years. And this isn't the last conversation or podcast that we'll do. And for folks that are wondering if I didn't make it clear enough, just keep it locked right here, wherever you're listening to us from right now. You'll be able to hear what's next. So it won't be a mystery. I won't fall off the face of the earth. Hopefully, that's the plan. To stay, I'll keep talking about basically what I'm talking about. So don't worry about any format changes. If you enjoy what we have to say, or if you enjoy the people we have on, Chris and Rachel, I would love to have you both back on, and of course, my good friend Philip. So IllinoisHGA.com. Rachel, Chris, Philip, thank you so much for joining me tonight. All right. Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye bye.